So it looks like we've got a smiley face on
And a
one
frowny
side
face.
and a frowny face on the other.
Nice.
I wonder if that's just because the guy playing lands really likes playing lands and Brandon just doesn't like playing Death and Taxes.
Could be. This should be a good match, though. I mean, both of these players are 6-0, so we know that they know what they're doing. But Kevin King has he won Eternal Masters with this lands deck, and Brandon Pascal, I believe he lives out on Long Island, but I've seen him at a lot of the New York City area Magic tournaments, and he's currently in a pre-med program, so certainly a smart kid.
Well, it sounds like Brandon is on 6 cards, and that is why he is sad.
Hence the smart frowny
He loves
face.
playing Death and Taxes, though, so let's go ahead and jump into our match and see who is going to take this win. All right, so Brandon's going to start off. Rashad Port, Aether Vial, not a bad 6 cards here, but Kevin's going to have a copy of Exploration.
Wow.
He's going to play a Wasteland and get rid of that Rashad Port, so good starts for both players. The Mana Denial, though, isn't going to do a whole lot against Brandon since he has that Aether Vial.
Yeah, the Mana Denial plan of lands is usually quite potent, but the Death and Taxes deck, not only does it have access to Aether Vial, but also has quite a few basic lands, which will be pretty relevant.
Here we have a Horizon Canopy for Brandon.
You know, we were talking about teams before. I just want to give a small shout out to the comic book store, which Brandon has a shirt on from that place, and Kevin King has a shirt from MTG First. So there's certainly a lot of smaller Magic organizations that are all looking to do their thing.
Well, Kevin is operating at full steam here. He was able to use a Life from the Loam to get back his Wasteland and waste Brandon's Horizon Canopy. Brandon does have a Cavern of Souls, going to name Human. He's going to name Cleric instead of Human. He's going to play a Mother of Runes. Looks like he has 2 counters on his Aether Vial. He means Human, not Cleric.
So Kevin has a few ways to deal with creatures once they hit the board. His best solution is Punishing Fire, although that is rather mana intensive. He also has Tabernacle of Pendrell Vale, which is one of those unusual old cards. Really don't make them the way they used to. And he also has Maze of Ith. So that's going to be Kevin's main forms of defense while he tries to lock Brandon out of the game.
So you're telling me that the ways that the lands deck is going to interact with his opponent is with lands?
Yes.
And Punishing Fire? But Grove of the Burnwells is a land.
Yeah, Grove of the Burnwells is really what drives that engine.
So Kevin's going to use one of my favorite cards, a little gamble action.
Yep, very cool.
He's going to go get a card and discard it. So there's a Grove of the Burnwells in the graveyard. It could be that's the card that he went and found with his gamble.
Yeah, one of the great things about Gamble, specifically in the lands deck, is that because of the presence of Life from the Loam, you're always going to get the card you want, because if it does go to the graveyard, you're going to be able to get it later.
A lot of the time, you just gamble for Life from the Loam.
Yep.
So whether you discard it or not, it doesn't really matter.
Yep.
We are going to get an Aether Vial activation here. Phyrexian Revoker is going to enter the battlefield. It's going to name Deathrite Shaman.
And Dark Depths is a fairly unique card. This is one of the good ways that lands has to win. It's actually a bit of a combo kill with Vesuva, and it is
Thespian Stage.
Or excuse me, Thespian Stage, and it is the fastest way for lands to potentially close out a game. If Brandon taps out and doesn't have access to Swords to Plowshares or a Flicker Wisp off his Aether Vial, we could see Kevin trying to use Dark Depths to win the game in one big hit.
Attacking for 20 is no joke. He's going to dredge Life from the Loam in his draw step. He's going to hit a couple lands. He's going to cast that Life from the Loam, get back 2 Wastelands and a Grove of the Burnwellows. He's going to waste that Cavern of Souls and then use a Crop Rotation on
and
his...
could this get Thespian Stage?
On his...
Ooh, that's good. When your opponent doesn't have any lands.
So he's just going to get Tabernacle.
And they don't make them like they used to. For
They
those
don't.
of you who are unfamiliar, this makes it so that all creatures have an upkeep cost of 1 colorless mana. And if you can't pay it, that creature's destroyed.
It's interesting that the word destroyed is what's used.
Yeah.
Because like if you have a Merit Lage token, it's indestructible.
Yep.
So it just doesn't die.
Yeah. It's funny how that little synergy works out.
Oh man, I wonder if you could potentially play Archangel Avacyn.
Oh, that
Trigger
would be
on the stack.
crazy.
Bam! Aether Vial this Archangel Avacyn onto the battlefield.
Yeah, you're probably more likely to get your Aether Vial up to 5 before you get 5 lands out against this deck, though. And Brandon does manage to hit a basic Plains, which is quite nice, but unfortunately not until after all of his creatures have died.
So Kevin's going to go ahead and dredge back that life from the loam. He gets a couple more lands, no Thespian stage yet. So he just basically is on the plan of casting life from the loam every turn until he can dredge it back and find a Thespian stage. In the meantime, he's just going to be generating a bunch more mana.
Yeah, and this is the way that the lands deck essentially not only generates card advantage, but burns through his deck to see as many cards as possible. And the ones that are potent in the matchup, like let's say Wasteland, get to be reused over and over and over again.
All right.
Now that's a card I like, Brimaz.
So Brimaz is going to be Aether Vialed in on Kevin's end step. Brandon's going to pay the 1 mana for the Tabernacle upkeep on Brimaz. Now we're going to attack along with a cat token. Little kitty action.
Brimaz did a lot of work for me. Basically, since it was printed in Standard, I played 3 copies until it was rotated out of Standard.
Yeah.
Did a lot of damage with that card. First in green-white aggro and then Abzan aggro.
I Mizium Mortared a lot of Brimaz.
Oh, I bet. You probably needed to overload them also in order to clear the cat tokens. I almost want to say they don't make them like they used to in regard to Mizium Mortars also, but that card wasn't made that long ago.
They still don't make them like they used to.
Yeah, that was really good.
All right, well, Kevin's going to take 3 points of damage. We're just going to manually remove a counter. Might as well use my mana. He's not going to dredge back life from the loam.
Yeah, that's a little surprising. I wonder what he's hoping to draw to.
He's just going to play his lands. Oh, we're going to get a Punishing Fire in Brandon's upkeep.
So it's a little interesting to do that during the... Oh, so he's going after the Brimaz.
Yeah.
So I guess he's doing it now because if he had done it end of turn, Brandon could have used a Flicker Wisp to save the Brimaz. And if he had done it after Brandon's draw step, he would have had to worry about a top deck Flicker Wisp.
All right, so that Cat Soldier's just going to crash in for 1, bring Kevin down to 14. I think he's going to dredge that life from the loam this turn. All right, well, we still have not hit a copy of Thespian Stage yet, but he is just going to be able to keep playing 2 lands per turn.
And if Kevin does hit Thespian Stage, he will be a little worried about Brandon Pascal having a Flicker Wisp or a Swords to Plowshares on that Wrath of Laird Mage token. That said, Kevin can just use Life from the Loam to just do it all over again the next turn and just run Brandon out of plows.
And now that he has since he has that Exploration and Loam going, he can actually just make a 20/20 every turn for the rest of the game once he finds Thespian Stage.
Yep.
He also has Punishing Fire along with Grove. So he's going to use that, bring Brandon up to 23, get rid of the Cat Soldier.
And you can see that Kevin doesn't really have much of an opportunity to deliberate his plays for much time. He's moving pretty quick. And it's because this lands deck really does take a lot of time to win the game, even once you've locked your opponent out of it. Sequencing your Grove of the Burn Willows and Punishing Fires and Dredging Loam, the mechanics of playing this deck are kind of time consuming. So you really don't want to pick up this lands deck unless you're going to get a lot of practice in it and you're going to be able to be fast and fluid with all of the decisions and mechanics related to operating it.
Well, here's another life from the loam. It's going to bring back the Cycle land. It's like a Maze of Ith and a fetch land. There's the Maze. Tranquil Thicket is the name.
Yeah, and Tranquil Thicket is going to allow him to draw some extra cards because he can discard it to draw a card and then just loam it back and do it the next turn.
All right, well, Kevin is just going to be porting Brandon in his upkeep.
He's going to draw off the thicket and then use that draw step to dredge loam, and Brandon has seen enough. He knows he's dead, and he's going to be looking to have another crack at it in game 2.
Yeah, Brandon's going to go ahead and scoop it up. Kevin King's going to take game 1 here against Death and Taxes with lands, and he was just firing on all cylinders from the very start of the game. Let's take a look at these players' sideboards to see if we can figure out what kind of swaps they might make. Kevin has 4 copies of Croson Grip, a Bajuka Bog, a Caracas, 2 Tireless Tracker, 4 Sphere of Resistance, 2 copies of Boil, and a Chalice of the Void. What do we think Kevin's going to be bringing in?
So the cards that I like are some number of Croson Grips to deal with Aether Vial, although I don't think I would want to have all the Croson Grips, but it also can hit some equipment or Fire Exchange Revoker. I think that Tireless Tracker, if he has it in his sideboard, it might be for a matchup like this. I mean, it has the potential to just grow to basically lock down the board. It can be a great source of card advantage. And the other card that Kevin could consider is Chalice of the Void. Brandon has a lot of 1-mana cards. He may not need it, but that is certainly something you can consider.
Now on Brandon's side, we have 2 copies of Path to Exile, a Pithy Needle, 2 Containment Priest, 2 Aethersworn Canonist, 2 Rest in Peace, 2 Cancel's Judgment, a Cataclysm, 2 Gideon Ally of Zendikar, and a Relic of Progenitus. What do we think Brandon's going to bring in?
So I think Pithing Needle has a little bit of utility here. I think Containment Priest is something that could deal with the Wrath of Merit Lage token, although I don't think that's actually a particularly good answer, so I don't think it'll come in. Rest in Peace and Relic of Progenitus are great ways to interact with Life from the Loam and lock it out. Cataclysm is also something that could be a little bit of an equalizer if Brandon can get up to 4 mana. And then Gideon Ally of Zendikar, a non-creature threat in the form of Planeswalker, can be quite effective against lands because they don't actually fight Planeswalkers that well.
That is true. However,
4 mana is a lot.
4 mana is a lot, and Maze of Ith is a pretty good answer to a Gideon if he tries to attack
that's
with
certainly
it.
true.
So I have to. The more I look at this, the more I feel bad for Brandon Pascal. I didn't think that the land stack was going to be like super favored in this matchup, but it just feels pretty bad for Brandon.
Yeah, Brandon, his deck is set up for creature battles.
That being said, Rest in Peace is a heck of a Magic card and has the potential to just put this game away. Now, like you said, Brandon has a comic shop shirt on, which is one of the local game stores there in Long Island, or in the New York area. I'm assuming Long Island since you said that's where he's from. There's also a local game store in Roanoke, Virginia.
Oh, yeah.
That has this really awesome Eldritch Moon pre-release promotion going on that you can even get in your local game store. So the pre-release is July 16th and 17th, and you can get these really sweet playmats with Lily Llama.
Yeah, they're very, very cool. All the Star City swag is just so sweet.
Lily Llama is awesome.
Oh, yeah. The most awesome llama.
The most awesome llama. Go to starcitygames.com/pre-release. Your local store can sign up for this and get these limited edition playmats available at your participating store. So before, you used to only be able to get them in Roanoke at the starcitygames.com game center that weekend of the pre-release, and then the following Monday, whatever was left over from however many they had made would just go on the website and you could purchase them there. But now you're able to get these in your local game stores. So that is pretty neat. Lily Llama is awesome.
Get your game store to sign up. You can get all this cool stuff too.
So for the Eldritch Moon pre-release, get your local game store to sign up for this exclusive limited edition playmat. Lily Llama, just dancing with her zombie snakes. This playmat's sweet. I might have to try and get one myself.
Oh yeah.
July 16th and 17th. So let's hop back to our match. It looks like the players are just about finished shuffling up here for their sideboarded match. Kevin King is on lands, currently 6-0, up a game against Brandon Pascal, who is on Death and Taxes. Both players are 6-0, playing to be undefeated.
Yeah, and while I was talking about sideboarding, I'd mentioned that Kevin probably wasn't going to bring in all 4 of its Croson Grips. After realizing that Brandon has access to Rest in Peace, Kevin most certainly has all 4 of those Croson Grips in his deck now.
I also think that Tireless Tracker has the potential to be good. Not only can it draw you a bunch of cards and get huge, it's just a way to end the game that isn't requiring you to interact with your graveyard.
Yep. we'll see. Both of the players had, well, Kevin had a fairly explosive start the previous game, and he was able to knock out all of Brandon's mana. That said, Brandon has a lot of basics in his deck, and we may see something quite different if Brandon is able to get on the board and have some basic lands in play. I mean, that Tabernacle of Pendrell Vale just wiped Brandon's board, and then immediately afterwards he drew 2 basic lands. Yeah. So if Brandon's cards had just been in a slightly different order, he might have actually had the tools he needed to win the game. He just needed to have them be sequenced differently.
Yeah, it's real bittersweet when you just have a bunch of non-basic lands that get wastelanded and you don't have any wastelands, and then you draw a bunch of basic lands.
Yeah.
After it would have mattered.
Yeah, you want that to happen in the reverse order.
All right, so it looks like Brandon is going down to 6 cards. Another frowny face here. Let's see if he keeps it. He does. He's going to scry to the bottom. See if we can start off with another Aether Vial here, and he has the basic planes this time.
Nice.
Kevin looks like he has a Mox Diamond, so this game could get pretty good pretty fast. Oh, there's the gamble. All right, are we looking for Loam?
And look how fast Kevin is playing. This man knows what he's doing.
Yeah. Maybe he went to the Jarvis School of Lands.
Yeah.
Of landing.
I know that Adam Ragsdale is playing Jarvis's copy of Lands in this tournament, and Mr. Ragsdale did top 8 the last GP, so certainly one that we haven't seen, but maybe one to watch out for.
All right, so Punishing Fire is going to get discarded to that gamble. Let's see if Kevin has a land to play.
His deck is called Lands. I would hope he's got a land to play.
I remember the first incarnations of this deck, that it was just called 42 Lands because they all played 42 lands. There's a little less now, but even still.
Yeah.
All right, there's a Grove of the Burn Willows, another gamble. Let's see what we get. It could be anything. It could even be a boat.
Is it a boat?
Is it a boat? It is a boat. That's the Life from the Loam. All right.
And you always have to wonder, did he just gamble for the Life from the Loam? Is that the card he wants?
Because if he had it in hand, then he could just start gambling for the combo pieces. Let's see if Brandon can find a rest in peace here and just close the door on this mess.
Discarding Life from the Loam to gamble is almost the ideal situation, because then you get to draw it and dredge it.
Yep. Looks like we have another Aether Vial. Wasteland for the Grove. Let's see if Kevin has another land. He does not have another land.
Wow. So Kevin had an explosive start, but it is missing the lands. And Brandon could run away with this game. We'll see.
This has a bunch of Croson Grips. Oh, well, there is a Grove. So he did find a land.
And he has the basic land, so Brandon knows that he's safe against a card like Tabernacle of Pendrell Vale, which is quite important.
Ooh, so Kevin's going to play his Grove and expose it to another wasteland. I kind of would have just like waited to dredge. All right, here comes an attack for 4 from Brandon.
That would have been a nice play as well, but I guess Kevin was hoping to dodge the wasteland so that he could dredge and play a land that turn.
Well, he gets to play 2 lands, so.
He has more than 1 land in his graveyard, right?
Yeah. Oh, Flicker Wisp is going to hit a Mox Diamond.
Jeez. Brandon Pascal firing on all cylinders, looking like he's just going to run away with this game. Again, Kevin, like so many of these legacy decks, doesn't actually have a really good way of catching up when he's behind. The one way would be Tabernacle Pendrell Vale, but Brandon has that covered with the basic planes.
Oh, he's going to miss another land drop. He's down to 10 from these attacks from Brandon.
And at this point, Kevin's probably just looking to see what kind of sideboard cards Brandon has brought in.
Right, Kevin's going to fall down to 4 past the turn. Brandon's just going to attack. And just like that, Brandon's going to take game 2. We saw a bunch of Croson Grips in Kevin's hand.
No lands.
Flicker Wisp on that Mox Diamond is real
that was
spicy.
Nice. Yeah.
Oh, you don't have any more lands in hand?
Yeah.
You can't discard one? All right, just going to destroy this. Man, so do we think that either player is going to change up their sideboarding plans at all?
I don't think so. I think for the most part, the cards they have are good in the matchup, and being on the player of the draw and having a tempo advantage doesn't actually change a whole lot. So I think for the most part, they'll just shuffle it up, present the same 60 cards, and go to war.
You definitely go to war. Now, both of these players play a lot of tournaments, and I've seen Brandon at a lot of events, even at the invitationals.
Yep.
And if you too would like to play in one of our invitationals, you can earn a spot by winning one of your local invitational qualifiers. So you have exclusive prizes, invitational qualification.
Oh, and that is a
Playmats,
nice playmat.
Top 8 pins, invitational winner tokens, SCG premium vouchers. That is a good. All right,
That is really cool.
I need to see if somebody has one of those playmats they can trade.
It's like the wolves like gnawing on her scarf while she's hiding in a tree.
Yeah, like there aren't any IQs that I'm able to go to because like I'm traveling or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I would like to try and get one of these playmats.
The colors on that one are really cool too.
Yeah.
Like the bright red, orangey brown colors contrasted with like the darker, cooler purples. It's really sweet.
Yeah, big ups to whoever we had do the art in-house, whether it was Kristen or Andrea. It looks like it was Kristen Pascal.
Nice. Yeah, very talented.
StarCityGames.com invitational qualifiers. Again, qualification to the invitational playmat, top 8 pin, SCG premium vouchers, invitational winner tokens. Go to StarCityGames.com/IQ. If you want to get this sweet stuff in your local game store, let them know you want to battle. Have them get a hold of us and get contracted for it, and we'll send those kits out so you guys can battle. Plus, they even get the advertising on the StarCityGames.com homepage under the IQ tab. So if you want to find some events in your area, make sure you check out that the IQ tab on the StarCityGames.com homepage. Great information. That's even when I was in Roanoke, I would use that all the time to find out. All right.
Yeah. What tournaments are there in my area?
Yeah. What tournaments are there within 6 hours driving distance? Because I would even drive to these IQs because they're such great value and they're very fun to play in.
Yeah, it's a great thing for local stores to do is just get involved in a bigger tournament circuit. Just draws a lot of people in. And so one thing that's a little interesting about the IQs is I just heard over the speaker that Reed isn't queued for the next invitational. So
he just needs to top 8 this.
Yeah, he's got to do it.
Yeah, that's the whole point. That's why he's here, is to try and get queued for New Jersey.
All I want to do is talk about Reed.
Really?
He's like
you and a large majority of the Magic fan
base.
He's
like my best friend.
Yeah, and he's also pretty awesome.
Oh yeah, Reed's gas.
He's a nice dude.
Yeah, he's a really nice kid, really good Magic player. He's been playing, we got him playing when his reading level was not like at a level where he really understood all the cards. He just memorized what they did and would play that way.
No, that's how I still am.
Yeah.
Like I have, a college reading level, but I still memorize the cards. Like it will be a while until I can tell you what the Kindle is that's in this new set, what the name is, but I know what the card does. Same thing with the accumulated knowledge, the incinerate, the red escalate split card, like all of those cards. Like I have the cards memorized what they do, but what the names of them are.
Well, at least you can read them to remind yourself of what they do. When we got Reed playing as a little kid, like we just told him what they did and he just believed us. Like we didn't realize that you could only attack once each turn. So when we told him that something with vigilance doesn't need to tap to attack, he was like, "Oh, so I'll attack with this? Okay, I'll attack with it again. Okay, I'll attack with it again. This is all on the same turn."
Man, that's a good card.
Yeah, vigilance is pretty good.
See, even before he could read, Reed Duke was trying to break the format.
Oh yeah. Oh, Zephyr Falcon, I can kill you in one turn with this. Perfect.
All right. Looks like Brandon has mulligan to 6 again for the 3rd time in this match. He's going to keep his card on top. It looks like Kevin mulligan to 6 as well, but Brandon has that turn 1 Aether Vial again. Kevin has more than 1 land though, so let's see what he decides to get going here.
So I've seen Brandon mulligan every single game this match, but I'll take it because he's had Aether Vial every game this match, which is a pretty important card for the matchup.
We've got Riftstone Portal here on turn 2 for Kevin. That is
a reader.
It's a card from Judgment, taps for a colorless, and if it's in your graveyard, all of your lands become savannas.
Oh, that's cool.
Basically, all of your lands have the ability to tap for green or white.
A very cool card.
All right, Aether Vial's going to go up one. Brandon's going to get ported in his upkeep, just play another land and pass.
Bit of a slower start from Kevin, but at least he has land drops, which is what he wants. He was able to be on the play, but it'll be interesting to see if he can keep up with this Aether Vial.
He's going to go ahead and gamble. Let's see what he looks for. He can get whatever he wants, any card. You don't have to reveal it.
Baby, you can have whatever you like.
Every time my opponent casts gamble, before they give me their hand, I ask them, what'd you get?
Yeah.
I used to do the same with Demonic Tutor back when I was playing Vintage.
I like doing that in Standard with Dark Petition.
Yeah, what'd you get?
My favorite is when they Dark Petition, they only have like one other card in their hand, they shuffle them all up, and then they cast, obviously, like a really good card
like
in that situation.
The Kalidas or Chandra, whatever they went and got.
And it's like...
All right, well, Gamble's going to get rid of the Glacial Chasm. All right, Aether Vial's going to go up to 2. Brandon is going to get ported again in his upkeep. He has a 3rd Plains. You're going to see a Thalia, Guardian of Thraben.
And this can give Kevin a little bit of a problem, but now that we're at this stage and he has access to enough mana, it's probably not going to be an insurmountable inconvenience. Thalia is so good, though. This is just a really great card. Also, star of one of our really nice playmats.
Yeah. Looks like Brandon also has a copy of Karakas in his hand, which might make it difficult for Kevin to attack with a legendary Merit Lage token.
Yeah, that said, if he knows he has to fight through that, though, he'll just find a wasteland at some point. So.
All right, we're just going to pass the turn. Port Brandon in his upkeep. We're just kind of building our mana base here. There's the Karakas. There's another Aether Vial. Attack for 2 with Thalia.
And Brandon's draw is quite good against mana disruption, but it's not much of a clock. So Kevin's got a lot of time to look for what he needs.
So he's going to crop rotation the Riftstone Portal. We might see a Mazavith here. Yeah,
Yep.
Mazavith is going to stop the Thalia. But now because he has that Riftstone Portal, that Maze even taps for mana if it needs to, as does copies of Dark Depths that are
Boom,
on the
combo. Wombo combo.
It's almost like when they designed Riftstone Portal,
They had this deck in mind.
this deck in mind 100 years ago during Judgment.
Just as Richard Garfield intended.
Yeah. All right, so just going to pass back to Kevin. Brandon also has that Aether Vial on 3 with a Flicker Wisp in hand, so he's pretty insulated against a Merit Lodge token. But he still has to try and end this game before Kevin can just build up an insurmountable advantage.
Yeah, and Kevin's got a lot of breathing room. He's still at 20 life. If we get into the late game, Kevin's deck is advantaged. He does have the more powerful plays, and he can potentially answer everything that Brandon does. That said, Brandon, has a fair amount of valuable interaction, and he is going to be able to get ahead with these Aether Vials and deploy things faster than Kevin can actually deal with them.
All right, so in Kevin's end step, Brandon's going to Flicker Wisp that Mazavith, which will leave it out for a turn. He's going to get Karakas ported in his upkeep. Maze is going to come back.
And Kevin could fire off a Croson Grip on one of these Aether Vials, but considering how much mana Brandon has access to and how he's, turns have gone by where those Aether Vials haven't actually been used, I really like that Kevin is holding on to his Croson Grip for something more important like a Rest in Peace.
So Kevin's going to Life from the Loam, get back Glacial Chasm.
And this is one of the ways that Kevin can actually lock Brandon out of the game.
He did play a land for the turn, though, so Comes another Flicker Wisp is going to get that.
Wow, and so this is actually going to be a big hit. This is potentially a 2-turn clock.
And if he can find another Flicker Wisp, he'll be able to get rid of that Glacial Chasm and attack for the win at some point, potentially.
Yep. So this is close. There's the Tireless Tracker. Ooh, I like that.
He also found a Wasteland, which will be able to get rid of that Caracas.
I think the land that he wants to play for the turn is probably going to be Glacial Chasm. So Glacial Chasm is an interesting card. It's, again, they don't make them like they used to, but it's going to make it so that Kevin can't die to combat damage. So if Brandon can draw something like a Wasteland, Kevin is going to be in some serious trouble. But for now, Kevin can essentially play this Glacial Chasm. He can even choose to not pay the life, let it die, and then loam it back. But he really wants something like an Exploration in order to do that. Otherwise, he's going to run out of land drops. So what Brandon really wants to draw right now is a Wasteland. So it looks like Kevin's going to pay the upkeep cost this turn. And he would really like to find an Explorer so that he can have multiple land drops. Another interesting thing he can do is he can use Thespian Stage during his upkeep to copy the Glacial Chasm and get a turn of having Glacial Chasm in play without paying the upkeep cost. But he'd have to let the original one die if he doesn't want to lose life.
Yep, but then he's able to loam it back.
Yep.
You know, once he has an effect that lets him play more than one land a turn, then he can just make up for the land disadvantage.
Yep. So he can do this to essentially tread water, but he can lose to a Wasteland. So essentially what Kevin's explaining now is with the cumulative upkeep cost on the stack, he can copy it and then let the one that requires an upkeep cost die, and then his Thespian Stage will just be a Glacial Chasm in play that he won't need to pay an upkeep cost for until next turn.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to loam. We already have a lot of lands. I wonder if it's better just to hit draw steps to try and find an Exploration or a Mana Bond. Loam is going to get back some more lands.
A Tranquil Thicket would be a nice thing to have right now. You could cast it with his Maze of Ith.
We'll cycle it.
Yeah, just get an extra draw step.
Yeah, then he could dredge and still get
Yeah.
a draw step to try and find something like Exploration.
Yep. Kevin is really threading a needle. This is pretty interesting. I almost thought he was going to die with that second Flicker Wisp.
It's interesting. I was going to say, he can tap that Glacial Chasm copy because he has Riftstone Portal.
Yep.
Try and save himself on some mana.
And he's having the second Thespian Stage copy the first one, which is a Glacial Chasm, so he's able to dodge another upkeep cost.
Ooh, he drew a gamble.
There we go.
All right.
Can we get an Exploration?
Does he have Mana Bond in his deck? Looks like we got one Mana Bond. I think I just go get Mana Bond here.
Yeah, Mana Bond would be better.
He has 1,000,000 lands in his hand.
And it'll have probably a 1 in 8 chance of discarding it. Pretty good gamble.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, I would gamble. Gamble. Let's see what he gets. Looked like it was just an Exploration. Maybe he boarded out Mana Bond.
Yeah. What a weird deck this lands deck is.
It's real fun to watch the weird things that it does.
Yeah, it really plays a bunch of cards that no other deck plays. And it operates in just such a different way. Didn't need that Wooded Foothills anyway.
Nope.
So now we should be able to see Kevin start to turn the corner, where he's constantly has this Glacial Chasm in play and is able to actually develop his mana base. And Brandon's going to still have a window to draw a Wasteland to push lethal damage, but Kevin is going to be getting an opportunity to turn this game around. And so now Kevin has 2 Glacial Chasms in play, which will insulate him from potential Wasteland, but Brandon has drawn another great sideboard card.
This Relic is going to be brutal.
Yeah, this is big deal.
So we've got 2 Glacial Chasm triggers on the stack. I think that Kevin should use his Croson Grip on the Relic now, because it has split second.
Yep.
It can't be cracked.
Yeah, this is a good opportunity for it. And I feel like he's lining up his mana. That stack of 4 lands is to cast the Croson Grip and the 1 extra for Thalia. Yep. Jeez. And it's got split second, so Brandon cannot respond. And what could have been a game-winning top deck is a card that Kevin just happens to have the answer for.
And so he's going to dredge his Life from the Loam. There's the Dark Depths to go along with his Thespian stages. He's first going to set up his loop with Glacial Chasm so he doesn't die. So he'll give Brandon a couple more draw steps, but
that said, Kevin probably can't afford to play both Glacial Chasms here. He can probably only afford to play 1. So if Brandon can top deck a Wasteland, he can still win this. Drew a non-basic land, but it wasn't the right one.
He doesn't have a Thespian stage here, so I think he just has to pay the upkeep.
Well, he can just loam it.
That's
and
true.
Replay it. And this is a nice way to do it because he effectively has 2 Glacial Chasms with that Thespian stage and its mana available.
Mm-hmm.
So he's somewhat safe from a Wasteland, although that Rishadan port may have something to say about it.
I think that Kevin has all of the stuff that he needs land-wise. At this point, he might want to be digging for another exploration.
Mm-hmm. That said, he may need to just continually loam to keep the Glacial Chasm chain going.
Yeah, he might. I think he's going to take a turn off here just to use both of his Wastelands on Brandon's non-basics.
Yeah, well, getting rid of that Rishadan port is kind of important.
Oh, I think he just drew another exploration.
Oh, that's good. Wastelanding.
What a draw.
Brandon's Rishadan port, though, is fairly important because otherwise... Oh, well, this is good.
Yeah, here he can just Wasteland the
Caracas.
and then make a 20/20. Man, that exploration was clutch.
Oh, yeah.
Jeez.
It really allows Kevin to do a lot more. A lot of times with normal decks, we'll talk about the turning point where you can play two spells in a turn. This extra exploration means that Kevin can start playing 3 cards in a turn, which is something that is going to make this game snowball out of control in favor of Kevin King. This is going to be some pretty complicated sequencing.
I think that if I was Brandon there, I would have ported the Thespian stage in response to the Wasteland. But Brandon does have 2 copies of Swords to Plowshares in his hand, so...
That said, he really doesn't want Kevin to be gaining 20 life.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if Kevin attacks, Brandon just takes it.
Just goes down to 2.
Yeah. Although Punishing Fire would be pretty troublesome at that point. Maybe just block with a Flicker Wisp.
Yeah, maybe. He does have another Caracas in his hand.
Yeah, maybe just block with a Flicker Wisp this turn, and then play the Caracas the next turn. I mean, it is just going to get wastelanded, but... And if Kevin doesn't do this just right, he can still be vulnerable to a top deck.
Oh, is Merit Lage black? I believe Merit Lage is black.
Oh,
2/2 black avatar.
Wow, so Brandon actually has this on lockdown.
Yeah, Kevin needs to find a way to get back Punishing Fire.
What a complex game. I think for the most part, though, this is just going to be a matter of sequencing things properly on Kevin's part. Brandon's just relying, again, on that top deck Wasteland, and Kevin's relying on just doing everything right so that he's safe against a Wasteland while developing more and more lands onto the table.
Mm-hmm. Brandon's going to tap down a Grove. Kevin's going to give him a life and rebuy his Punishing Fire.
Yeah, and now we'll see him really start eating away at Brandon's board. And if he can clean up Brandon's board, he won't need to continually loop these Glacial Chasms. And that Wrath of Merit Lage token is going to be able to do some work. I think if Brandon manages to draw another Relic of Progenitus, he should just fire it off as soon as he draws it.
Yeah.
Fortunately, he only has 1. He does have Rest in Peace. Rest in Peace would still be a good draw.
Kevin's going to use Life from the Loam. Get back 3 more lands.
I suppose that Brandon's actually been drawing to a fair number of outs. Wastelands and Rest in Pieces would all be great top decks.
Yeah.
Another Flicker Wisp would potentially be game-ending if it had shown up on the right turn. But that's one of the problems with his Death and Taxes deck. Or I shouldn't say one of the problems, but that's one of the disadvantages, is that you don't have access to cards like Brainstorm or Ponder to filter your draw and find what you need. You have to rely on naturally drawing it. That said, you also don't have to spin your mana on a bunch of cantrips.
Caracas is going to take care of the 20/20. Just going to pass the turn. He's going to Wasteland one of the Rishadan ports. Time is a factor. We're getting pretty low here. Kevin does need to actually win this game, so it's not a draw.
Yeah. There's one thing that the Lands deck and the Miracles deck both have in common, and that is that the clock is one of the biggest adversaries.
All right, he's just going to play 3 lands. Pass the turn.
And so the one Thespian stage is a copy of Glacial Chasm. He's got another Thespian stage available so that if Brandon does draw a Wasteland, he can copy it in response. And at this point, he's probably got enough mana where he can just start, you know, punishing fire all of Brandon's creatures, and then win with a Merit Lage token while having enough available to keep himself safe against a Wasteland.
There is a Wasteland for Brandon. He is really holding on here.
Yeah, how many Thespian Sages are out?
Looks like there are 3.
Depending on how things go, Brandon might be able to find a spot where he can tap one Thespian stage so that it can't copy the Glacial Chasm, and then waste the one that's active and then go to combat, but we'll see. What Brandon likely needs to do is just find a good spot where Kevin's a little low on accessible mana, and Brandon can use a Wasteland, a Rishodon Port, and a Flicker Wisp or something like that to lock out these Glacial Chasms. But while all that's happening, Kevin's going to start eating away at Brandon's board with this Punishing Fire.
Yeah.
Ruh-roh. Got to pay 3 men for that, buddy. And the Thalia is doing a decent amount of work to buy Brandon time. Kevin would be able to sequence through a lot of his stuff a lot faster if that Thalia wasn't around.
Yeah, the judge is making sure that that Dark Depths can tap for mana. He does have a Riftstone Portal. But this could end up being bad here. If Brandon taps down that the other Thespian stage,
yeah,
and then Wastelands that Glacial Chasm, he might just steal this game.
Well, he has to copy it now.
So he's going to make another Glacial Chasm.
So he's forced to copy it.
So if we get a Flecker Wisp or a second.
But this is a nice way of putting pressure on Kevin, because now he has 2 Glacial Chasms where he really only wants 1.
All right, so we're going to get a Wasteland on the tapped Thespian stage.
So this means that he can't copy one of the ones already in play. So Kevin's going to have 2 Glacial Chasms that he needs to pay for. Oh, and there is the Gideon.
So
I thought he'd bring that in.
Looks like we're just going to make a 2/2.
So looks like Kevin's going to pay 2 life, going down to 1, and let one of those Thespian stages that's copying a Glacial Chasm stay in play. And before we saw Kevin had quite a few lands, but he's a bit shorter on mana as compared to a few turns ago. He does have those explorations to catch back up.
All right, so he's just going to dredge back Loam, play Loam, get back 3 stages, play 3 stages. Kevin is at 1 though. If Brandon's able to find a way to attack.
He was able to find a way to force Kevin to pay for 1 upkeep cost of Glacial Chasm, and if he can do that again, Brandon's going to win. So very, very close. We are running out of time on the clock for Brandon, but we're getting close.
So we've got another Glacial Chasm.
And I have to imagine that the first target for these Punishing Fires is just going to be that Thalia. That said, the Caracas is something that he needs to deal with first. The alternative would be to target Thalia with 1 Punishing Fire, Brandon bounces it with Caracas, and then he just uses the other Punishing Fire to finish it off.
Looks like Brandon has a couple more copies of Thalia in his hand, though. So
Yeah.
my gut tells me this is going to end up in a draw.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're probably going to have another one of those. If Kevin had infinite time, I feel like there's a good chance that he would win, but that is not the case.
All right, we're going to make another 2020. Which is weird considering Brandon has a Caracas.
He may be trying to bait Brandon into using the Crocus so that Kevin can use a Punishing Fire on the Thalia, but I do agree.
Oh, he's going to go ahead and loam.
And you can see how much stress it's putting on Kevin, the fact that he has to constantly loop these Glacial Chasms. He's got 2 explorations in play, and he still only has 8 lands in play.
All right, well, Kevin is turn 0. Brandon will be turn 1. Oh, no. Here comes a Pithing Needle, which is going to stop the Thespian stage shenanigans.
And I don't think we have a Croson Grip. Danger, Will Robinson, danger.
Yeah, well, he's just going to be able to, he's going to have to loan back the Glacial Chasm every turn.
Yeah.
He might just end up decking himself with Life from the Loam.
Maybe. Yeah, that Graveyard is a big clump. That's got to be at least a draft deck size right there.
At least.
So he's going to be able to play the Glacial Chasm this turn, but then he's going to have essentially, you know, he needs to find a Croson's Grip. He still can just play the Glacial Chasm and then not pay the upkeep cost, loam it back, but he's not going to be, like, he had been using the Thespian stages to keep himself secure against a top deck Wasteland, where now he's going to be cold to a top deck Wasteland.
Looks like we got 13 cards left in Kevin's deck. I'm interested, for those of you out there watching that are lands aficionados, was there any point in this game earlier that Kevin could have taken a different line to gain an advantage?
Yeah, tweet at us, let us know.
I have to feel like if he had a Mana Bond still in this deck, that I would have got Mana Bond with the first exploration.
Wow, and another Crocus.
Third Caracas for Brandon. All right, well, Kevin is just going to have to let that Glacial Chasm die.
And I think Brandon's going to have one turn to potentially top deck a Wasteland for the win, and then that's going to be it.
So he's just going to let the Glacial Chasm die. We're going to dredge back Loam. We're going to cast Loam.
And see what the top card of Brandon's deck is. It's always frustrating when you get to a draw and you're like, I have all this stuff.
Yeah. All right.
Let's see it.
Got a Wasteland or a Flicker Wisp? Sword of Fire and Ice is not going to do it.
So after a very, very close match, these players are going to have to acknowledge that the end boss, which is the clock, cannot be overcome. Certainly a good example of the various ways each of these decks have to interact with each other. We basically got to see it all from the lands deck. They had the Glacial Chasm lock, they had the Punishing Fire combo, they had Thespian stage doing all kinds of shenanigans, they had the Mox, they had Exploration ramping their mana up, Gamble did its thing to tutor. So we got to see lands do a lot of what it does, and we got to see the Death and Taxes do a lot of what it does, which is, you know, leverage Caracas, use Aether Vial to flood the board with a bunch of creatures that have unusual utility. Flicker Wisp did a nice job of interacting in ways that were rather surprising, to be quite frank. Like Brandon almost won that game off the back of 2 Flicker Wisps.